Hello everyone. Hello everyone. Hi. My name is Elena Sayre, and I'll be mediating the panel tonight. The format of tonight's panel will include 30 minutes of questions formulated by Amnesty International, and the second 30 minutes will open the floor to any questions that any of you may have. Please ensure that any and all questions that you have are respectful towards Tom and the people of Gaza. Now, welcome our guest, Tom Hayes. We just want to say we're really appreciative that you made the time to be here. And before I get into all of our questions, I was hoping you could just introduce yourself to everyone and just your history with the school and all that good stuff.
Well, I am an OU product. I went to school here when hippies roamed the earth, and then went out, and this school gave me a life. And I went out and worked in the industry for 25 years and was recruited to come back here and teach 22 years ago. So and my kids went here. My wife got her master's at OU. So I am OU, as are you. And as we get into any of these issues between me and this institution, I want us to all be clear that the administration is not OU. You are OU. I'm OU.
So our first question is, when did you become passionate about Palestinian liberation? Was there any specific event that compelled you to act on the issue?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah. I had done a film called Refugee Road, which is out there on YouTube. All my work is liberated. I'd done this film called Refugee Road, and that had taken me to, it was about the aftermath of the Khmer Rouge genocide. And in the process, I had filmed in refugee camps out on the Cambodian border, and one of those, Camp 1 in Arina Pratet, was shelled. And the idea of artillery, look, refugees are people who have lost their lives. Like, somebody says, get a life. Well, your life is your community, your neighbors, your friends, the places you go. They've already lost their lives, and then for people to then go after their existence, to me, that really disturbed me. And about a year after I finished that film, I have no dog in this fight. I'm not an Arab, I'm not a Palestinian, I'm not Jewish. I just stumbled into this issue one morning. I read an article that said that Israel had launched airstrikes against Rashidia refugee camp in southern Lebanon. Now, I knew from my work that every refugee camp in the world is more than 50% children. So you drop high explosives into a refugee camp, the results are utterly predictable. And when I read that, I had an enormous cognitive dissonance. I mean, I still remember that morning. I mean, like finishing my breakfast, I'm reading this story, and I'm like, what the absolute fuck? Seriously, because I, like every American, is bathed. Like when you hear the word Israel, this voice says, good. But I was also clearly aware of what it means to bomb a refugee camp. And I could not integrate these two things. So I went to the library. There wasn't internet back then. This is in April 1981. I remember this because my life kind of turned on a dime that morning. So I went to the library, and the more I read, the more I felt like I had been made a fool of. I didn't really know what a Palestinian was, and I didn't know why Palestinians were refugees. And when it became clear to me that the people that were bombing them were the same regime that had driven them into that refugee camp in the first place, I became concerned, particularly because it became very clear that the United States was so involved. Those were American planes. Those were American bombs. I had paid for those with my taxes. So 18 months later, I was in Rashidia camp with a camera on my shoulder. And I did that film, Native Sons, Palestinians in Exile. And I will say that that was a very rough shoot on account of the weather was death. You know, it was like artillery with occasional showers of small arms. So that was a very, very difficult film to do. But that's how I got involved. And once I got involved, then of course every time I picked up the paper, I knew I was reading bullshit. And every time I turned on the TV or listened to the radio, I knew I was being bathed in bullshit. And so, and I knew people there at that point. You know, it was no longer, it's not like politics. It's like, okay, these are actual human beings that I know. So I really have not, well, I have looked back. I have wished over the years, over these 44 years, that I had never read that article, because it's ruled my life. It's really ruled my life since then.
What year did you make that documentary?
It took me 2 years. Okay, April '81. I was in Russia camp in '83. So it was released in '86.
I think that's really good to just considering a lot of people think that this is a new conflict, but it's been going on for decades and decades.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, since before '48, but certainly from '48 on, it's really been a horror. Certainly for Palestinian human beings, it's been a horror since '48.
So what made you want to join the Freedom Flotilla Coalition?
Well, you know, I live this thing, so, I mean, yeah, I teach here at OSU, School of Film, but, you know, that's my day job. But this is sort of constantly part of my life, keeping up with friends, because, you know, I've been going back and forth to Palestine itself, Gaza, the refugee camps in southern Lebanon since '81, and so I was aware that really since 2007, since there were elections in 2006, Hamas won them against the America's pet circus poodle, Mahmoud Abbas, who runs the Palestine Authority. But he's just a puppet anyway. People were sick of him. They elected Hamas overwhelmingly. And immediately the United States discounted that election, despite the fact that President Jimmy Carter had certified that election as being fair. The United States helped try to put down Hamas's leadership. They basically wound up with power in Gaza. So the United States, along with Israel, then basically made it into a prison. Now, it had always been a prison. I mean, it was basically a place where Israel stored laborers. Understand this about Gaza, and I think this is really important. 70% of the families in Gaza are refugees from 1948. They were families that were driven from their homes into refugee camps. So Gaza is essentially a huge refugee camp. People of goodwill from around the world wanted to open a humanitarian corridor into Gaza, because Israel controls all of the crossings. One of them is with the Egyptian border, but Israel controls the other side of that border. So this means that control of everything, like pistachios, were banned. You know, the simplest thing. You know, control of every single aspect of Palestinians living in Gaza's life. So people got together. The movement started out as the Free Gaza movement. They started sending small boats in. A couple of them made it. They sent one called, it was the Destiny. It had 3.5 tons of aid in it, medical aid, that the Cypriot government had contributed. That boat was rammed by the Israel Death and Destruction Forces. It was forced to limp into Tyre, Lebanon. Anyway, I was following this. People that I have been Facebook friends with forever were on those boats. So when you know, I started hearing, okay, they're sending more boats. It's now the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, FFC. go to that site. You can apply to be on the boat. Anyway, so actually, in summer of 2024 was my first voyage with them on a boat called the Hondola. And we were supposed to meet a cargo ship and the Conscience, which sailed this summer. We were supposed to meet them in Istanbul. There were going to be medical volunteers on the Conscience. We were doing consciousness raising events around Europe, working our way up to Istanbul, and then we were supposed to meet those two and sail for Gaza. But Guinea-Bissau, which had flagged those boats, which is a technical term, basically you can't. It means that the vessel is registered with some country, and you can't sail if you don't have a flag. Anyway, so days before they were supposed to sail, Guinea-Bissau yanked the flags, deflagged the vessels, and that pretty much put an end to that mission. That was called For the Children of Gaza mission. So I bailed in Sicily and came back home, and then I heard about the mission this year. I had tried to get on the global Freedom Flotilla because there were four waves this summer. FFC sent the Madeleine. Greta was on that boat. It was hijacked. They were kidnapped. They were imprisoned. Eventually released. Then the Hondola was refitted, and so it tried to get in. It was also hijacked, crew kidnapped, etc. Then Global Smooth Flotilla went out. Global Smooth Flotilla was 44 small boats, mostly sailors, and so they made a try for it. One of them got close. But none of them got in. So they were all hijacked and kidnapped. And, because understand that when a vessel is on the high seas, the only vessel that can legally interfere with its navigation is from the navy of the country for which it is flagged. So all of these hijackings are just that. They are hijackings. They are crimes. And then we mounted up for, it was the medical and media workers mission. So we had dozens of physicians running the gamut from OBGYN to anesthetists, trauma surgeons, mental health professionals on the one hand, and then we had the media workers. Now, why medical and media workers? Because medical workers have been slaughtered in Gaza for the last 2 years, targeted for killing, sometimes with their entire families. So they need doctors. And we also had a substantial amount of, about $100,000 worth of medical aid aboard, things like antibiotics, pain medication, diabetes medication, blood pressure, things that would save people's lives. Why media workers? Because media workers have also been slaughtered. There's this, the propaganda that spews out of the genocide regime is that all these Palestinian journalists are Hamas propagandists, so we have to kill them. Except that they won't allow any independent international journalists in. So there's no way for anybody to say, well, oh yeah, maybe they are propaganda. Anyway, so here we come. There were media workers of every stripe aboard. There were TikTok influencers and Instagram mavens and Facebook old farts and new farts and documentary makers like myself, and we were geared up. We were geared up and ready to rock and roll. So and these doctors, they were ready to step off. Because of so many physicians have been murdered, the people who have survived are incredibly overburdened. And medical supplies have been blocked for years. So these doctors were ready to step off and step into what is left of the obliterated medical facilities, because at this point it's mostly tents, and they had their gear. So that was the mission. That was the mission on the Conscience.
If you're comfortable with answering, what were the conditions like when you were being held in Israel?
Well, I have many dozens of friends and people that I've interviewed over the years who have been in the custody of the IDF. And so I would say that we were treated mostly like white people. Everybody was assaulted. Everybody was assaulted. Humiliation, strip searches, that sort of thing, and violence. We did have to watch some of our comrades beaten, and beaten, and it was brown people. It was the brown people on board who really took the worst of it. One a woman named Noah, kind of a pocket person, and I don't mean that in terms of her stature as a human being. Just she's a very small woman. She took a terrible beating, just a terrible beating. I don't know, that's the sort of thing, it's disturbing. I suppose there were a couple of things that really disturbed me. I expected abuse if they took us. We had hoped that maybe they had gotten bored with hijacking. They'd already hijacked 46 vessels this summer, and maybe they'd be bored with it. Maybe they would finally let us get in. And the thing was, okay, they searched our person, every single one of us, when they hijacked the ship, and it was all very dramatic, the helicopters and the guys on the ropes with the machine guns and the lasers in your face and all that. And we had practiced our chance, we had practiced, we had drilled for this possibility. So we are journalists, we are medics, we are journalists, we are medics, open hands, so they knew we could not pose any sort of threat in our appearance in any way. But anyway, so everybody gets searched. Then they went through the whole ship and searched every bag, tossed every bag, went through everything. Then they went stem to stern and searched the ship. So at that point, they could have ended their crimes. It was absolutely clear that the most dangerous thing aboard were the paring knives down in the galley. We were not a threat to the security of the state of Israel. And they could have just let us go through. We were not a threat. But the whole point is the siege. The whole point is the blockade. The whole point is keeping humanitarian aid out of Gaza. And so instead of letting us proceed after they had taken the place apart, they kidnapped us and imprisoned us and put everybody in stress positions. Then zip tied, blindfolded, and in terms of how were we treated, well. Every friend of mine who has ever been had their turn in the barrel, so to speak, once the blindfold goes on, the clubs and the boots start coming down for Palestinians. When we were zip tied and blindfolded, I was like punched in the head, I consider it really a pussy move, come on. If you've already got me zip tied, you could have punched me in the head and looked me in the eye while you did it, but no, you have to hide, they'll put a blindfold on me, then punch me in the head. Anyway, that pissed me off. But the other really disturbing thing for me was when they had us all, because there were 93 of us in total, 10 crew for the ship, and then 83 of the rest of us, media, medical workers, activists. When they had us, kneeling, zip ties, on our knees on concrete, heads down, had to assume a submissive posture. When somebody would whimper, because this went on anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half, which, try it sometime. Find a nice piece of concrete, put your arms behind your back, and kneel for an hour or so. It's painful. And when there were troops all around us, and one of the most disturbing things about the experience was when somebody would whimper, the troops would laugh. This was funny. This was like suffering as entertainment. That really disturbed me in terms of a sort of a social marker, because it wasn't one soldier. It was this little patter of laughter around us when somebody would whimper. We were taken to Ketziot prison, which is an infamous Israeli prison. There are thousands of Palestinian prisoners in that place. I considered where we were held the sort of the Ketziot Hotel, because there was like a place for everybody to sleep. So we didn't have to take turns. You know, people didn't have to stand against the wall and wait while other people slept. And we take turns like that, which is sort of de rigueur in the cells that Palestinians are held in. So, you know, relatively speaking, they wouldn't let me have my medication, which is actually dangerous. I'm not a kid, you know. It's a dangerous thing to do to people. They wouldn't let the people with diabetes have their medication. Food was not really a thing there. And, you know, of course, strip searches, you know, just efforts to, I'm pretty hard to humiliate, so, you know, if you really want to see my junk, that's your problem. I'm hard to humiliate.
What are the conditions that Palestinians are facing in Gaza, and how does it compare to the conditions that Palestinians are facing in the West Bank?
Well, I want to sort of take a curve on this question. The program, the Zionist program, is to liquidate the physical and cultural presence of the indigenous people of Palestine. That's the program. And so it's handled differently in the West Bank because it's full of settlers. So there's some degree, it's harder to do airstrikes when there's a settlement right next door. So they deal with them a little differently. But I do want to touch on this alleged ceasefire in terms of conditions that Palestinians are living under right now. There's this sort of cosmetic claim of a ceasefire. As of this morning, 240 Palestinians have been killed since October 11th by this ceasefire. More than 600 wounded. This ceasefire is also, or agreement, is also supposed to include 600 trucks of aid per day. Now, prior to the genocide, 500 trucks a day were coming in. So this deal is supposed to give 100 more trucks. But I want you to think about this. More than 83% of the housing stock in Gaza has been leveled. The medical infrastructure has been obliterated. The drinking water, sanitation, electrical infrastructure has been demolished. So 600 trucks a day ain't gonna do it. And winter is closing in. Winter is closing in, and this situation is so desperate. I'm a dad. Most people here haven't raised a baby, but I can tell you there's some things that you really need when you're trying to keep a baby alive, like a roof, warmth, water to keep them clean, medicine to keep them alive, food. After World War II, there was this thing called the Berlin Airlift. Now, Berlin was the capital of the Third Reich, the heart of Nazism. And yet, the world put together the Berlin Airlift. And a plane landed there full of aid every 2 minutes. In the heart of the very heart of the Nazi stronghold. Well, we need something on that scale right now. I mean, right now. Every crossing needs to be open for unlimited humanitarian aid. Gaza airport needs to be repaved immediately so that there can be medical evacuations and aid coming in by air, because there are so many grievously wounded, tens of thousands, who could save a limb if they could just get actual medical care. And a maritime humanitarian corridor needs to be opened, which is what we were trying to accomplish on our mission. But without that, without a global effort to bring aid into that space, I doubt a single infant will survive this winter. Winter is coming. This is dread beyond comprehension, and this is in your time. In your time on this planet, there is because that's the thing. It doesn't matter if the booms and the bangs and the bullets have slowed. That's not relevant anymore. The United States used its UN Security Council veto 6 times to prevent ceasefires, which gave the genocide regime all the time it needed to create a situation where the conditions of life don't exist in that space. So this genocide now has a momentum of its own. It has hit a critical mass where it doesn't matter if there are bullets, because there isn't food, there isn't shelter, there isn't medicine, there isn't drinking water. We are challenged as a species right now, because if this can happen to anyone on this planet, then it can happen to anyone, right? The word anyone means anyone. This is, it's up to us, particularly us. If we put a map of the world on the wall over here, and turned off the lights, and I stood over here and I threw a dart at it with my eyes closed, I would hit some place where something awful is happening, probably. There are a lot of awful things on the planet right now. Jamaica is in a hell of a fix after the hurricane. Malaysia just got bashed with a terrible typhoon. What's happening in Sudan is hideous, and it has the bloody handprints of the United Arab Emirates all over it. But Gaza and Palestine, the bloody handprints of the United States are indelible in this space. This is our genocide. Our weapons, our Security Council vetoes to prolong the killing. This is our responsibility. And the crazy thing about it, okay, Israel has a population smaller than metropolitan New York City as a nation. But for years, it's been the #1 recipient of U.S. foreign aid. I mean, when I released People in the Land, Israel got 6 times as much aid as all sub-Saharan Africa. So, no shit. Wow. So we are utterly committed to this, and the thing is that we have laws, America, well, we had laws. I'm not so sure about that these days, but one of those laws is called the U.S. Foreign Assistance Act. And the U.S. Foreign Assistance Act says that no country with a consistent pattern of gross violations of internationally recognized human rights is eligible for a penny of U.S. foreign aid. So all of this money that's coming, like, out of my pocket, out of your pocket, if you work, you're paying to kill Palestinians. Your parents are paying to kill Palestinians. We are all paying to kill Palestinians. And it's illegal. And we do have the ability to resist this. And I take great encouragement from what happened in New York City last night, that it's very easy to be cynical about the American political process, that like this cultivated sense of powerlessness. That, well, we really can't make a difference, you know. No, oh yes we can. Oh yes we can. But that means doing more than being pissed off or sad. It means like actually bending the ears of legislators, whether they're state or local or national legislators, and letting them know. And I think that the signal that Mamdani's election has sent across this country is, yes, we can. We can change this paradigm. And I think that legislators that were sending out form letters before will have been watching that election last night, and they're going to start thinking, uh-oh, particularly young people, because you know, you don't watch TV, right? You watch social media. You know more about the genocide in Gaza than your parents do, probably, because of your contact, because there are the mainstream media filters information so much about this situation. So anyway, I'm optimistic, sort of. I'm just terrified for people in Gaza this winter, because they have nothing to support them as human beings.
So we just have one more question, and then we'll get into questions from everyone in the room.
Sure.
What do you have to say to the representatives who have been refusing to push Israel to stop the genocide in Gaza, and what do you have to say to the OU administration who removed you from your position?
Well, okay. As far as our government reps, it's pretty clear from what's been going on at the International Court of Justice that anybody, corporation, politician, anybody else who has facilitated this genocide needs to be standing in the dock facing charges. So I would put the entire U.S. Congress under arrest warrants for sending money, continuing to send money in arms to facilitate this. People need to be held responsible for this. You know, there's a 83-year-old woman in Germany who was recently jailed because she was a stenographer in one of the death camps during World War II. There is no statute of limitations on war crimes and crimes against humanity. And I hope all of our senators that voted for this aid and all of our congressmen know that fact too, because they are responsible. We own this. As far as my relationship with what's going on with me and Ohio University, I was removed as instructor from the only in-person course that I was teaching this semester. The pretext for it was that I had left my students with streaming lectures to provision the course for the time that I was going to be on the mission. And they're completely unbending on this, despite the feedback that they've gotten from alums, like 150 of my alums from these 20-some years that I've been here, contacted the university about very engaged students. But I do want to say this about OU, and I sort of opened with this, that the institution and the administration are two really different things. And I think if you're a Bobcat, it's something to be really proud of in terms of the history of this institution. This was the first university in the United States that accepted a ex-slave, enrolled an ex-slave. So it desegregated shortly after the Civil War, where in 1964, the high schools in Little Rock, Arkansas were still not desegregated. So this university was out front on that. During the Vietnam War, the community of OU shut this university down in protest of the slaughter of Southeast Asian people. And there were National Guard with fixed bayonets all over this campus. During South African apartheid, Ohio University divested, rather than have anything to do with that horror. So if you're a Bobcat, you've got something to be proud of. There is a tradition of being on the right side of history at this institution. We have a brand new administration here, and I don't think they know where they are. I don't think that they know that they're at OU with its rich history. They're newbies. The president, the provost, my dean, they're all newbies. I don't think they know where they are. And I think that's really unfortunate, and I think they should do their homework. You know, the state, this SB1 thing, which everyone is cowering behind their little desks about. Look, you know, sometimes you just say no. Right now, this university is got a lawsuit to try to block the faculty union. Well, instead of using its legal power there, why don't they take up a First Amendment case against SB1 and say, no, you can't tell us how we run our university, you can't tell us how we teach, you can't tell us what we say in our classrooms. You know, this is cowardice, and that is not OU. That is not OU. That is some pussy bullshit.
Okay, so now we can open it up to the
Good question. I always find it easier to go out than to come back. You know, because go out, you know, you're going out. You know, there's like adrenaline and fear, and you know, it's like, you know, it's like sticking your tongue in a wall outlet. But you know, when you're there, like the community on the ship, there were 24 countries, people from 24 countries. They were all, it was a UN of the concerned and determined. So like-minded people, great souls, just being in that environment is so rarefied and compelling. So coming back to you know, TikTok influencers and stuff. Re-entry, I find re-entry difficult. Every time, sometimes more than others. But I miss my comrades. We got together on Signal the other night, just to see each other. The re-entry's hard. Good question.
What perspectives did you get with working with international activists, especially like not from the US? So did you learn anything new that you hadn't had in mind before, or?
Sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
Oh yeah. Did you learn anything, like any new perspectives while working with different international activists in the flotilla? Something that you had in mind before.
Okay. Did I learn anything new from working with international activists? Well, you know, the thing is that since I've been going to Palestine, I'm always with a bunch of international activists. I call them privately the Abe Lincoln Brigade, in memory of those who died fighting fascism in Spain back in the 30s. So it's the community of people you're with. You know, they're all they're strong souls, and we're all pretty much on the same page. I mean, we got on the boat because we were on the same page. You know, we knew. Look, you know, rolling up on an army that's been doing a live stream genocide for 2 years, you have to expect anything. But this crew is committed people, and everybody knew why they were there, and we all knew why each other were there in that space. So I don't think I learned anything new on it, except I met some new people. So who I love all of them because they're great souls, and they're courageous, and they're willing to sacrifice. And that, you know, being in a community with a common vision of a better future, willing to sacrifice, man, that will send a chill down your spine.
Yeah, so you may have said it, but I did not maybe pay a lot of attention. So I understood that when you were approaching the shore, they came to you down from helicopters, right?
Yeah, that's how it started.
Yes, but then did the flotilla finally dock somewhere, or?
Yeah, they took control of the ship. First the guys, the shock troops came down on ropes. Then Zodiacs, like at least a dozen Zodiacs, those sort of inflatable speedboat thingies. Then they came in, so then they came up over the stern. They took control of the ship. They took control of the bridge. They tried to figure out the autopilot. They weren't very good at that, so it took them a while to figure that out. And so then they commandeered the ship and took us into Ashdod in Israel. So, I mean, it's not funny, but if you were not from Earth, it would be funny. That we were accused, or not, we were never formally charged with the crime, but basically we were there. The way they dealt with us was that we had entered Israel illegally. And, we all tried to point out that, well, actually we were hijacked on the high seas in international waters and then kidnapped, which is why we were in Israel. So we didn't enter Israel illegally, we did it at gunpoint. So that was the score. So then then we go through this abuse on arrival, and then we were all zip tied, blindfolded, thrown into cages on buses, and then taken down to Ketziot prison in the Negev desert.
Do you feel like you were treated differently because you were an American citizen and we have that relationship with Israel? Like, did they try and talk to you or give you special privileges because they were worried that the U.S. might do retribution of some sort for harming a U.S. citizen?
No, they have tested their impunity, and it has proven absolutely galactic. Some of the Americans, two of the Americans that I was with were really, really badly mistreated in terms of physical assault. Even when we arrived in Ashdod, Noah, the woman that I described, is an American citizen, and she was, they changed her face. So they don't give a shit. Our American citizenship didn't mean anything to them. But like I said, we were not treated like Palestinians. We were treated as though we were sort of members of the human race. Sort of. Eve.
Do you explain for anyone who's unaware what BDS is?
Yes. What would Palestinians be asking us to do? Okay, first off, I know it's an unpopular thought, but it's a really good idea to include Palestinians in the definition of human being. That would be a really big start for them. But BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions. So any product that profits from the occupation or from the genocide, don't buy it. Sanctions are something that governments do. And there's no reason in the world that the United States isn't sanctioning the genocide regime. It worked on South Africa. BDS worked on South Africa. It might have just been that their sports teams couldn't play outside the country anymore, but it was effective. And just in terms of hope threads, we didn't have a TV when I was a kid, and so my mom read to us a lot. When I was 9, she read me a book called Cry the Beloved Country, which is about apartheid and the abuse of African people in South Africa. When I was 39, Nelson Mandela became the president of South Africa. And that's kind of a North Star for me, that yes, change can come. Change can come, but it takes people of goodwill putting their shoulder to the stone. I'm from Vermont, and Vermont was a abolitionist state before there was a United States. It was an abolitionist colony, and people in Vermont, generation after generation, were abolitionists. Just because one generation didn't get the stone to the top of the hill in their lifetime, the next generation got their shoulder to the stone. And if we are going to reach a point where we have real justice and equality on this planet, we can't look at it in short-term pieces. It means that we do what we can in our lifetime, and we hope that the next generation gets their shoulder to the stone, and they push, and they push. So BDS. Other things you can do is get active. So for example, there's an organization on campus called SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. And they're creative, and they are committed, much like the people on the boat. And so if you want to activate yourself and get your shoulder to the stone, I would really encourage you to get on the boat with SJP. Any other questions? Aha, yes.
You mentioned at the very beginning of when you started talking that you had to break free from this sort of cognitive dissonance about who Israel really was. How would you suggest talking to people that you can tell are still very much wrapped in this idea of what they think is the truth, and sort of convincing them that they were wrong and they are wrong?
Yeah, well, because it's an easy thrall. I mean, because we are bathed in bullshit constantly. Every time I come back to the States, speaking of reentry, I always feel like I'm just being like submerged in a tub full of bullshit. Really. But I would suggest that at least something that I postulate as effective is get people to really do some introspection about what does the word Israel really mean in their heads. Because, you say Israel and it's like, but what does it mean? Does it mean the dirt, which is currently called Israel? Well, okay, dirt doesn't do much, it just sits there. So that's not really what Israel is. Is it the people on that dirt? Well, people are people. If we accept the self-evident truth of the equality of all human beings, then there's no problem there. Or does the word Israel refer to an ethno-supremacist genocidal regime? That's the question. Do you think that ethnically based genocide is a good thing? And I don't think there's anybody that would say, yeah, I think that's just great. Well, I mean, maybe there are some people like that, but they will be impervious to instruction. But I think, getting people to really, really examine what's going on in their head when they even hear that word. But I think it is important to educate yourself. If you want to speak to this issue, you really got to know your stuff, because language is so fraught on it. When I started working on Native Sons, just saying the P word, somebody would say, "You're a Nazi." If you said Palestinian, because Palestinian means terrorist, it doesn't mean human being, it means some monster. And that's changing, and I think it's changed a lot in the last 2 years. I think that I have felt for a long time that social media and the internet, that maybe no tyranny could stand before it. When I started work in Palestine, you needed 16, the only real field acquisition equipment was 16 millimeter. That equipment is very expensive. You had to buy negative from Kodak. You had to be able to pay the lab. So there were all these sort of capital requirements to tell any story anywhere on the planet. Well, now any Palestinian with a cell phone can share a moment of their life with us, and that is blowing up this wall between Palestinians and the rest of the world, and I think it's having a magnificent impact. I think what we saw in New York it speaks to the power of social media and the power of voices to get beyond the bullshit bath, which we have snorkeled around in for so long.
We have time for one more question.
Oh, we got time for any question you want to ask. I'm not nervous.
I have a question. So at the beginning you mentioned that like as in order to like break yourself out of the like mindset, you like did research, and I was wondering if there's any like specific books or things to read that you would recommend.
Yes. I think one of the first things I read, and certainly because it deals with refugee experience, it's called The Disinherited. The Disinherited by Fawaz, F-A-W-A-Z, Turki, T-U-R-K-I. The Disinherited. It's just straight up like what was the Nakba? How did it affect people? Because he was old enough when his family was driven from their home in Palestine to actually be able to construct a narrative of it and his experience in the camp. And he followed that up with Soul in Exile. But I think The Disinherited, that was really pivotal for me. Edward Said wrote a book called The Question of Palestine, which I hate the title because Palestinians are not a question, they're not a problem, they're not an issue. Palestinians are human beings. It's a very dense text. It's a very dense text, and it's almost apologetically dense. But he wrote it in during the period when, just saying the P word was, but his last name is Said, S-A-I-D. He actually helped me on the writing on Native Sons, on the voiceovers. Martin Sheen did the voiceovers for me on that. So those are important. I would be getting on the Electronic Intifada. There's a website called the Electronic Intifada. Also, the Palestine Chronicle has a really good site. Ramzi Baroud, who sort of curates it, is from Rafah in Gaza Strip. So, authentic Palestinian voices. I think that's really what you want to be listening to as a foil against this constant stream of propaganda that it's inflicted on us. You had a question.
So you mentioned having hope, and like you said, we're kind of constantly being bathed in a crock of bullshit. And we are watching a live stream genocide. What do you look to kind of not drown in the crock of bullshit?
Well, I think that the real baseline, the reason why I am, even in the face of all this blood, and I've been at my wit's end. I mean, just at my wit's end. I have friends there that were not married when I met them. They've had children. Their children have children now. They're all homeless. I don't know who's still alive. I mean, I've been at my wit's end. It was easy for me to get on that boat. But here's the thing. I spent a lot of time, years reading about this, and one thing that I learned is that Palestinians have said hello to and waved goodbye to more assholes than any community on this planet. Because of their location, right at the throat of Africa, between Europe and Asia, they've been invaded by more jerks than any human community on Earth, and they have maintained their culture, and they have held on to their land. The Mongols even invaded Palestine. I mean, they have dealt with this spectrum, and they have done it with grace. And so that's I guess that's really my baseline, is like, you know, if you were going to pick a place on this planet to set up a settler, colonial, segregated ethno-state, this was not the place. This was the last place on Earth you would want to do that, because they're used to this. They have the rocks to remember there. There's a great scene in a film called Canticle of the Stones, where this old woman says, it's in Arabic, but what she says, the translation is, "If they kill us all, the stones will throw themselves." And I think that really speaks to their attachment to the land and the realities of the situation. Palestinians are Palestine. Zionists have just got to come to grips with that. Killing 20,000 children, it does not make them safer. If foreigners killed 20,000 American children, do you think that would make them safer? I mean, is there any yeah, maybe? I don't think there's even a yeah, maybe in there. I think that's like, are you crazy? What's the matter with you? You know? So they're just going to have to come to terms with the fact that Palestinians exist, will continue to exist, and they have to learn how to live with the indigenous people of that land. Can you holla?
Are there resources for donations that you would suggest?
Places for donations? Well, there's a jillion places. One that I'm really super partial to, mostly because it was started by a guy who I met in like '85, who I then ran into in Gaza. He wound up marrying a woman in Gaza. He started an organization called HEAL. And what they do is they take kids who amputee Palestinian children and fly them out and get them rehab, prosthetics, and help them. These are obviously super desperate cases. So the organization is called HEAL. Freedom Flotilla is good. Defense of Children International Palestine is a good organization. Look, I get, okay, I'm a Facebook old fart, and I get dozens of DMs from people saying, my kids are hungry and stuff like that. And, unless you know them, that could be some war criminal on the beach in Tel Aviv asking you for money. This is not a joke. I'm serious. You really have to be careful about where you send your money. But there are these really good organizations that are out there saving lives. UNRWA is a very important, and it's been defunded by the United States, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA. They've helped me on all my films. They traveled me in UN flagged cars in Lebanon when the weather was death. But they are the only people that really can do the job in terms of getting Gaza back on its feet. So, $2. I mean, really, anything that we can do right now, anything we can do. All the way in the back.
For raising your voice today, what's the future hold for you to share your perspective and your story?
Well, I'm working on another doc right now, kind of a retrospective piece. I've been gathering footage for, more than 40 years. So I have unfortunately accumulated a pretty good record of the spiral into 24-hour-a-day live stream genocide. I mean, it was always in the cards. But I have a lot of evidence. I have a lot of evidence. So I'm working on a new piece of my own right now. But I'm, you know, anywhere I can get out and holler, I'm getting out and hollering. And the next time that the flotilla is looking for a guy that'll do the dishes down in the galley, I'm going to be on that boat. You know, we can't stop trying. We can't stop trying. So you know, anything that I can do, you know, and the thing is, that's a horrible question. That's a horrible question. Lay bad at night. What then must we do? What then must I do? What then must I do? It's not politics to me. It's not. There's nothing rhetorical about the question. It's human beings that I know. You know, it really.
How many boats to overwhelm the interceptors? If you were ready to go get like volume-wise, how many boats would it take to get some through? And get past
Yeah, well, 44 didn't do it. Dr. Daoud, one of the trauma surgeons that was aboard, we were on this call the other night. He's an American, and he said, "We got to get 30,000 boats. We got to get 30,000 boats and just do it." Kind of like the Normandy invasion or something like that. And you know, the steering committee at FFC said, "Well, okay, doctor, you know, let's get those 30,000 boats." You know, it's you know, because every boat is stolen. You know. Every boat that goes in is stolen. So, you know, we're talking, you know, jillions and jillions of dollars, and but the thing is, you know, 44 boats. They didn't figure any of them would make it. Look, this is a genocidal state. You know, if we send 100 boats or 150 boats, then a lot of people will die. But you know, slavery didn't end because slave owners decided that slavery was bad. Slavery ended because people sacrificed, and it may take that. It may take that. 10 were killed on the 2010 mission was with the Mavi Marmara. Israeli troops killed 9 on the spot when they hijacked that boat, and wounded 30, and one of them mortally. So when you get on the boat, you know, the best case scenario is being hijacked, assaulted, kidnapped, and imprisoned. That's your best case scenario. It's not a game.
Do you see any hope right now from the international community stepping up?
Well, Spain is on the move. Ireland is on the move. These recognitions from France and Australia, you know, it's like, oh, please. Recognition isn't going to do it. Sanctions. That's what needs to happen. And the thing is that millions of people are on the streets about this. Millions all over the world. And we need to press our governments and the people that are in office. They need to know that they won't be in office unless they start acting like human beings. And I take great hope from what happened in New York City, because I believe that the shockwaves from this, you know, there was the ADL put out basically as like a scare message. ADL is the allegedly Anti-Defamation League, but they sent out a message that said that New York City has the largest Jewish population in the world, which I thought on its face was kind of a weird confession, because if Jewish people have some congenital need to be in Israel, then why are there the largest Jewish population in the world in New York City? But they're basically this message was, oh, you're in horrible trouble, you're a big danger. But the fact that the city with the largest Jewish population in the world voted for a man who said, I think Palestinians are actually members of the human race. You know, I think that message actually could be an earthquake that flows out from this moment. It may be one city, but I believe that the implications are huge. Anybody else? Yes.
You mentioned earlier, like how OU's had a history of like standing up to issues, like in South Africa and Vietnam. I wasn't aware of this. Do you have any insight or maybe lessons to be learned from those affairs, like how we can move forward and with some sort of action like that?
It didn't happen. The Vietnam, South Africa, the South Africa divestment didn't happen because the people in Cutler woke up one morning and said, you know, I think apartheid is bad. No, it didn't go like that. It happened because OU, the community got up on its hind legs and demanded that the administration divest from South Africa. So it takes activism. It takes activism. I mean, it takes, like, you have a voice. You know, nobody's going to shoot you for actually expressing yourself. Now, look, using the P word in the United States, even today, can have repercussions on your life. But we have to have courage, you know. I believe that, you know, this isn't your practice life, okay? This isn't the life where you're like just practicing and then later you're going to do your real life, you know. Like, you know, get up on your hind legs and do your real life. This is your real life. So, you know, I hope you'll treat it like it is your real life. And be a participant in this planet, an active participant in this planet. You know, one American has more political power invested in them than entire countries on this planet. You are powerful people, and I hope you will feel that inside yourselves.
Where can people see your films?
My films are all liberated on YouTube, but you have to, they bury them. I mean, if you don't put Tom Hayes, documentary, and the title of the film, you will never find them. One that's not on here is Refugee Road. It's the one I did following the Khmer Rouge massacre, and it's from my optimistic period, so it's fun. It's more of a fun film.
Refugee Road?
Refugee Road. Yeah, like south of Columbus. Well, the actually interesting history of that place is that there were a lot of Canadians who stood with the colonists in Canada during the revolution that attempted to throw over the divine right of kings, and they were consequently chased out of Canada. And so the U.S. Congress made that area south of Columbus on the southeast side was the refugee tract. It was land that was given to the people who stood with the revolutionary Americans. So this whole area is a refuge for refugees. You learn weird shit when you do films about refugees. Yes.
Is there anything up to this point that you feel as if you want to talk about that you haven't gotten the opportunity to?
Nah, I think I've pretty much blurted it all out. All right.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
God damn it!
Thank
I
you so
really
much.
appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, and I appreciate the fact that you actually got up off your couches and came out. And good for you. Look at you. Look at you. What a bunch.
Hey all, once again, getting off of that, thank you all so much for being here. If you guys are interested in getting off your couches once again, on Friday, this poster on the screen behind Tom is a photo exhibition that's in collaboration with OU SJP here and Mohammed Nazal, who is a photojournalist in the West Bank, a Palestinian photojournalist in the West Bank. He has really graciously given us his photos for us to feature. So they're going to feature in Chauncey on Friday, at 48 Converse Street. There's bus transportation, and all people will also be giving rides. Those photos will be up for sale. All of those proceeds will go to Brazit University in the West Bank, some of which will establish a scholarship in the name of Mariam Abu Dhaka, who is a hero Palestinian photojournalist who was killed by the Zionist entity only a couple of months ago. We're keeping her memory alive with this scholarship, as well as the countless other journalists that have been killed by Israel in the last 2 years. But yeah, this is a really awesome event that a lot of SJP folks have worked really hard to create, and it would be really cool if you guys could go there, if you guys could tell your friends about it. More information is on sjp.bobcats on Instagram. You guys should follow us on there. Additionally, if you want to get involved with SJP, you can go to sjp.bobcats, look at the link in the link tree, and join the GroupMe. From there, there's opportunities to take our onboarding sessions, known as the Popular University for Gaza Onboarding, to become a more active member of the organization. Thank you all so much for being here.
Also, if you want to continue getting involved in things like this, Amnesty International is also an option. We meet on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. in Gordy Hall 104? Yeah, 104.
Do you have also a page we can follow?
Yeah, it's
Amnesty.Ohio University.
Yeah, Amnesty.Ohio University on Instagram. We also collaborated with SJP, so you can find us on their account as well.
From OU to Palestine! From OU to Palestine! Occupation is a crime! Occupation is a crime! From OU to Palestine! From OU to Palestine! Occupation is a crime! Occupation is a crime! From OU to Palestine! From OU to Palestine! Occupation is a crime! Occupation is a crime! Free Palestine! 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 Long live Palestine! Long live Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Gaza, don't you cry! Gaza, don't you cry! We will never let you die! We will never let you die! Gaza, don't you cry! Gaza, don't you cry! We will never let you die! We will never let you die!
You know, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that some people think that saying something like, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And I ask myself, what's wrong with freedom? Why would anybody bitch about that? I just don't get it. Anyway, thank you very much for coming out tonight.